it's time for RTB 101. This is where we discuss practical questions to help equip you to share your faith more effectively. And once again, here to help me talk about a very important topic is Kenneth Samples. Welcome, Ken.
Hi, how are you doing?
It's good to have you here today to talk about issues related to Islam. And we're going to really be focusing on differences between Islam and Christianity. And I'm so glad you're here to help me talk about this because Islam is a key competitor to Christianity. Maybe you can help kind of paint that picture a little for us, Ken.
Yeah, the Pew Research put out a statement a couple of years ago, and they said that if current trends continue, there will be in 2050, there'll be 9 billion people living on planet Earth, approximately 3 billion Christians, approximately 3 billion Muslims, and then 3 billion others that would be made up of both religious and secular. And if you add up all the Christians in the world, that is, if you're very inclusive, Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, etc., you have about 2.2 billion. Muslims make up about 1.9 billion. So world population for Christians and Muslims is an amazing 55% of the world's total population.
That's so interesting. So as the population is going to grow, we're going to see some parity between Islam and Christianity. I know that there are key differences between our faith and that of our Muslim neighbors. I know that whenever I talk about religions, often I like to start with the Trinity because that is really a key difference between us and other religions. And I'm wondering if that's true between us and Islam as well.
Yes, you're right on target. The Trinity is a major difference. Instead of believing, as Trinitarians do, that there is one God in three persons, Muslims embrace a Unitarian view that says there's one God, one person. And in fact, there is a condemnation of the Trinity found in the Quran where they misidentify the Trinity. They say it is the Father, the Son, and the Virgin Mary. But Islam is clearly Unitarian, having more in common, let's say, with traditional Judaism or maybe with Zoroastrianism. But the Trinity is rejected by traditional Islam.
So when we talk to Muslims, we're going to have to know right out of the gate that our concept of God is somewhat different than theirs. And we're going to have to be careful to define our terms. I'm wondering if that's also true when we turn to conversations about Jesus, because I know that my Muslim friends, they honor Jesus. They seem to have some respect for Jesus. But how do they see Jesus as being different than I would as a Christian?
Yeah, you're right. They do honor him. They say that he was born of a virgin, that he lived a holy life, and performed the miraculous in his public ministry, though they say he's not as high as Muhammad. And where they fundamentally differ with historic Christianity is they say that Jesus is merely or solely a human being. So Islam categorically rejects the deity of Christ. They would see him merely as human, and therefore it is idolatry for Christians to worship Jesus as if he were God. This is what Muslims call shirk, which is one of the worst theological practices you could engage in.
So worshiping Jesus, and when I talk about that as a Christian, that's going to be a bit of a hindrance for my Muslim friends, that we're going to have to work through. And I'm imagining, conversations about him being the Son of God and some complications related to that. That's going to be somewhat offensive to them as well. Is that true?
Yes, and I think that when Muhammad, during his lifetime, he encountered Jews and Christians, but I think that the Christians he encountered were heretical, unorthodox. I don't think Muhammad ever had a clear understanding of either the Trinity or the two natures of Christ. So this is a major area of difference between the two faiths.
Interesting. So, what about the death of Jesus? I've run into that too with Muslims, where they seem to not completely understand the historic Christian position about Jesus's death. Can you give me any insight into that?
Yeah, they think that God, Allah, in their mind, would never allow the great prophet Jesus to die in such a despicable manner. And so within Islam, there is the belief that either he didn't die on the cross, uh, or even though he may have been impaled, or that somebody else, maybe Barabbas or some other figure, took his place. But regardless, Islam is not a redemptive religion. That is, Muhammad or no other person does something that changes your destiny before God. So the crucifixion and the atonement would be another area of strenuous disagreement.
That's really helpful because what I'm seeing unfold here is that although we have in common that, yes, we both believe in God and we believe there is one God, there are some significant differences in how we define who God is, who Jesus is, what happened at the crucifixion. Another critical question that Christianity answers is the question of what is humanity's fundamental problem? We call this sin. What might my Muslim friends say to that question?
Yeah, interestingly enough, Muslims don't believe that humans are made in the image of God, but nor do they believe in original sin. They believe human beings, babies, are born good. Now, this is a puzzling type of thing because Islam has had such a challenge when it comes to violence and things of that nature. But they don't accept the fall. They do not believe that human beings have a sinful nature and a propensity towards sin. So their view of humanity is that humans have no such fallen nature.
What's interesting to me, Ken, is as this picture is emerging, it almost goes against what our culture is saying. Our culture says that basically all religions are the same. But the way that you're describing the differences in some very critical areas between historic Christianity and the faith of Islam, these are not just differences that we can just kind of paper over in a superficial kind of a way. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I completely agree. I mean, Islam comes about 600 years after the birth, life, and death of Christ. And the differences that emerge, I mean, there are similarities, both theistic, both monotheistic, both Middle Eastern, both claim to be connected to Abraham in the Hebrew Old Testament. But essentially, what we discover is that Islam denies the very essence of historic Christianity: the Christian view of God, the Christian view of Christ, the Christian view of atonement, the Christian view of humanity. These are not insignificant differences, which then leads to the conclusion that if Islam is true, Christianity is false, and vice versa. If Christianity is true, Islam would be false. That doesn't set well with our kind of pluralistic culture.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful because they almost, we can't live in a world where they're both true. One of them must be false, or they both must be false. I'm wondering from a third perspective of the non-Christian, he might say, well, this just goes to show the religion is just stupid. I mean, look at all of these differences between these two religions. Maybe you can help us think about how we might answer that question when we talk to the non-Christian.
Well, I think maybe one way of approaching it is to understand that Christianity would not assert that everything in every other religion is false. I mean, after all, Christians believe all people are made in the image of God. Christians believe everybody is the recipient of common grace and general revelation. So they're inevitably going to get certain things right. But given the fallenness of humanity and given the spiritual warfare in existence in the world, I think we should expect that non-Christian religions will be a mixture of truth and error. So false gods, false Christs, false gospels. Now, that, of course, I think needs some unpackaging for a non-Christian, but it does indicate that everybody is going to get certain truths right because of the revelation that they're given.
Very good. That's helpful. Thank you so much, Ken, for walking us through some of these critical differences between Islam and Christianity. And I do want to invite everyone to go check out Ken's blog. Just go to reasons.org and search for Reflections.